The Lehman Brothers shocked the world when they were forced to file for bankruptcy on September 15, 2008, with a whopping $619 billion debt to pay. Lehman Brothers was a company that in its prime was considered to be one of the largest investment banks in the entire world, before, seemingly out of nowhere, it went bankrupt and ended up being dissolved. I mean, it was one of the only investment companies to have not only survived but thrived through times of national upheaval, including but not limited to the Great Depression. So where did Lehman Brothers go wrong? How could a company that's been running like a well-oiled machine since the middle of the 1800s just die, seemingly out of nowhere? Well, at the end of the day, it's going to all come down to the types of investments made by the company and the sort of loans they were dealing with. You see, Lehman Brothers was a trading company that was established in 1844 by a man named Henry Lehman. Henry was joined by his two brothers, and in the 1850s, Lehman Brothers became a major trading company that specialized in the cotton market. Over time, the company would shift in various directions, but in the 1900s, it made a major shift from being a trading company to becoming an investment bank. From that point on, Lehman Brothers became one of the investment companies that ended up changing the way the United States economy functioned, and they ended up providing countless individuals loans for housing and other commodities. This is what led to the Lehman Brothers becoming one of the largest investment banks and companies in the world. Where most other investment and banking companies failed, Lehman Brothers somehow prevailed and maintained their successful reputation. This is largely thanks to the growth and profits that the company saw due to their many significant investments that mainly involved MBSs, or mortgage-backed securities. However, as the saying goes, you should not put all of your eggs in one basket, and though Lehman Brothers had to do with more than just one mortgage-backed security, the depth in which they were involved in them is ultimately what saw their demise. It was sometime around 2003 when Lehman Brothers began looking into and getting involved in what is known as loan origination. Loan origination is essentially where the company that is responsible for lending the money for the loan has control over the entire process from start to finish. This means that the lender, in this case Lehman Brothers, would be the ones processing the application for the loan, reviewing it and determining whether or not certain requirements are met. And then, when all is said and done, they will either lend out the money themselves or deny the application. Before this point in time, Lehman Brothers was a company that was known for underwriting loans, which means that they would be the ones lending out the money for the loan after the application was approved by a separate company entirely. In other words, they went from simply providing the money for the loans to being the company that handles the entire process. Their downfall ultimately began in the mid-2000s during a period known as the housing boom, which ended up leading to an unprecedented number of MBSs being granted by the Lehman Brothers through the process of loan origination. While this may have looked great on paper, it surely spelled out the end of the investment company as unforeseen circumstances were about to arise. You see, by 2007, the company had become the largest holder in the world when it came to mortgage-based securities, which made them seem very impressive. However, when the housing market crashed, they essentially lost everything. Almost everyone who is alive right now, over the age of 16, knows about the housing market collapse, which occurred between the years 2006 and 2008. It was all due to the amount of high-risk and poorly structured loans that were put toward mortgages. You see, once the movement of the housing market began to slow down even a little bit, it began to lead to many families and companies to default on their mortgage loans, and the number of defaulted loans only continued to grow from there. Now, this is the point in time where a lot of loan companies and banks began denying a majority of mortgage loans simply because they could not afford to take big risks, as they had in the past. Lehman Brothers, on the other hand, had a different plan. Instead of taking a break from the real estate market while it settled, the investment company only continued to make more investments, one of which included spending upwards of $100 billion on a large chunk of real estate marketplace. Sadly for the Lehman Brothers, it was not the right move, and there was almost nothing they could have done to save the company at that point. I mean, it was clear that their time was coming to an end when Bear Stearns, one of the Lehman Brothers' strongest competitors on the market, went down first. At this point, Lehman Brothers were already at an all-time low and were beginning to rely on a lot of repossessing assets in order to provide their daily funding. This wasn't sustainable though. In September of 2008, the situation was plain and clear when the company reported that in the third quarter of that year alone, they had an anticipated loss that equated almost $4 billion. This news sent investors running for the hills, and Lehman Brothers' stock value quickly dropped by more than 77%, all within the first week of September. Though the CEO of the company, at the time, tried to quell the investors and act as if everything was going to be fine, anyone who still had money invested in the company knew that they had to get out. Finally, on September the 15th, 2008, after the company's stock plummeted more than 93%, Lehman Brothers was forced to file for bankruptcy. When all was said and done, the investment company known as Lehman Brothers had accrued more than $619 billion in debt, and when they filed for bankruptcy, they became the largest corporate bankruptcy in the history of the United States. It wasn't long after the death of the company that other loan and investment agencies began feeding off the corpse. Two companies, Barclays Bank as well as Nomura Holdings, ended up picking up the majority of Lehman's investments, as well as their trading operation, along with their headquarters in New York, which was acquired by Barclays. The collapse of the Lehman Brothers, while it may have been good news for very few companies, spelled bad news for the financial situation of many individuals around the world. It ended up being one of the many dominoes to come falling down in what is now known as the global financial crisis of 2008, as well as the Great Recession. This led to countless individuals losing their jobs, along with their life savings, and even their home. Now, even though a lot of the world has begun to recover from the recession, the same cannot be said for the Lehman Brothers. The investment company has been swallowed up and is no longer in existence. That's all for today's video. And remember, if you're interested in more videos concerning the common money mistakes made by celebrities, make sure you subscribe to our channel. I'll see you in our next video.